This is Carla Aquatina Hunger Force, and I'm congratulating you on your 100th episode of your podcast, Play That Rock and Roll. I gave you 1 star on your podcast because you got way too many episodes about friggin' Jimmy Buffett. Alright, I ain't no friggin' parrot head. I'm a metalhead, and I like to bang my head. You don't have 1 episode with the ultimate rock and roll band of all time. Of course, I'm speaking of Crocus. So more metal in the future, Joe. Otherwise, congratulations.
And you're listening to Play That Rock and Roll.
How do you call yourself rock and roll if you ain't got nobody from Crocus?
This is not a test. This is Play That Rock and Roll. I'm your host, Joe K, and today is our 100th episode, and it is a special one. Our guest today is comedian Nick Prueher. Nick is the co-host of the Found Footage Festival, which is a live comedy show that celebrates video oddities from the VHS era. They just passed 20 years of doing this show, and they're about to launch a new tour. I wanted to interview Nick because I have attended the Found Footage Festival many times over the years, going back to their early days when I was still in high school. It is a different show every tour, and every one has been hysterical. It's my absolute favorite live comedy show, so I thought Nick would be the perfect guest for our 100th episode. We begin this interview by talking about what Nick was doing before the Found Footage Festival, which was mainly working at The Late Show with David Letterman. He tells some great stories about interacting with celebrities like Richard Simmons, Darlene Love, Bruce Willis, and even Bill Clinton. He also shares his memories of working on the episode that featured Warren Zevon's legendary final appearance. From there, we move on to what he's doing now with the Found Footage Fest. He talks about how the show got started, the comedy bits he's most proud of, and some of the incredible and unique people he's met just by doing this show. And we even dive into the challenges they face when it comes to protecting their intellectual property. And also, the comedic art of video editing. So yeah, there's a lot going on in this interview. Definitely one of our best episodes. Nick and his longtime friend and co-host Joe Pickett will kick off the Found Footage Festival Volume 11 tour on October 23rd in Atlanta, and it will continue on for the rest of the year. 2026 dates will be announced soon as well. You can learn more about this show at foundfootagefest.com, and you can find them as Found Footage Fest on social media. Links are all in the description below. So with that, here is my 100th podcast episode, which is a conversation with the co-founder of the Found Footage Festival, Nick Prueher. What was your first job in comedy, and how did that lead you to The Late Show with David Letterman?
Well, so my partner Joe and I had a humor newspaper in middle school called the Daily Chimp. And I wouldn't call that a job because we didn't get paid, Lord knows. But and shouldn't have been. But that continued on through college. And then in college, we both got jobs writing for The Onion, which is at the time still mostly a local Madison, Wisconsin paper. But the website, I think, was just starting or getting close to starting, so it was getting a little bit more nationwide. So we would submit headlines for that, and that was kind of fun to see because we both loved The Onion. So get paid $10 for a headline was pretty cool when you're in college, and getting paid to write articles for a newspaper we really loved. So that was probably the first gig. And then right after college, I got a job as an intern at Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh.
So that was unpaid. Probably not a job, but I worked there for the last year of the show, doing production stuff mostly. And I interned at The Late Show with David Letterman in 1997 when I was a junior in college. And wanted to move back to New York after college. So after my internship with the Mystery Science Theater, I moved back out and got a job there as head researcher. Was my first job at the Letterman show in 1999.
Wow, that is awesome. Uh, with The Onion, are there any particular headlines that you recall writing that you're still fond of?
There's one I remember, yeah, that had a funny graphic along with it. It was new study reveals babies are stupid, and it had a diagram of all the tests the babies endured and failed at, and that got a lot of mileage. I think that was a front page one. And then there was one that ended up in the Onion Our Dumb Century book, which was I think it was Jodie Foster, John Hinckley to wed. She was impressed by his attempted assassination and swooned over it. And so yeah, that was. But yeah, we wrote one about. I think there's one about the Catholic Church was introducing like Cool Ranch communion wafers, and it was just like it ran the gamut. But those are some of them.
Oh, that's terrific. I remember that Catholic Church one.
Yeah.
Were you involved? There was just a book put out about the history of the Onion. I went to an author event.
Yeah, they interviewed Joe for it, but yeah, I was just there for a brief time,
Oh,
in college, and Joe stayed on and was actually like did delivery and like was delivering onions here in New York, and I think still contributes headlines when he's got free time. So
oh man, that is awesome. Okay, so you get to the Late Show with Letterman. You're
yeah,
in the late '90s, and what did your role entail? What were you doing on the job?
man, it's so funny because when I got to the show and when you watch a talk show on TV, um, the guest segments are usually pretty effortless. They're like 7 minutes is pretty casual, off the cuff conversation, but a lot goes into making those 7 minutes that a celebrity is on entertaining. And what I found out is most celebrities are really boring and they're so focused on acting that they're not great conversationalists. Um, and their life is just being on sets and in trailers. So there's not much like real world stuff. And the stuff that made a great story for the Letterman show was, making potato salad and accidentally cutting your finger while slicing a potato. That's the perfect story to tell on because it's a normal person
Right.
thing to have happen, and. Um, so essentially what I was doing was crafting those celebrity guest segments. And what went into that was reading everything that had been written about the person, whether that was a book by John McCain or a Richard Simmons autobiography or just all the interviews they'd done since the last time they were on the show. And then coming up with topics, things that might lead to stories or entertaining things to talk about. Was there something that Dave has been obsessed with recently? What does the guest think about that? And then we would do pre-interviews with the guests to see, oh, this might be a good topic, this one isn't, and then create notes for Dave so he knew, what areas he might want to get to. And then it's in his hands, and he was a master at making those segments memorable. But the funnest part for me of that gig was to try to do a little something extra for the segment, and sometimes that meant digging up an old embarrassing commercial they were in, or an old training video that they had a role in before they were famous, or Foot Locker training tape they were in, or I tracked down a high school production of Grease that Richard Gere was in that he hadn't seen
Oh
since high
wow.
school, and it was fun to surprise guests with that. Um, and as I got a little bit more confident on the show, I was able to suggest like comedy bits to do. I remember there was Tobey Maguire was on for the first Spider-Man, and so I had an idea that, we talked about the special effects and how cool it was. Let's roll a clip. And they would not tell Tobey Maguire, but throw to a clip from an old black and white giant spider movie.
Oh, okay.
And then that became like a running bit on the show. Whenever there was some new, superhero movie or whatever, we would throw to some corny clip and not tell the guest. Whenever a celebrity was on, like Isabella Rossellini or somebody that was promoting a makeup line, I would work with the props department to make the makeup edible and then have Dave be like, let me try a little bit of it. He'd have it out there to demo and he would just take a bite of it. Or I remember there was one where it was like a liquid, I think it was like a liquid foundation that had like a little pad on top of it. And we worked to figure out what the perfect thing that would look like a real pad was, and it was like a pita bread that was cut like
Oh,
that. And then we had cream cheese that we made beige. And so Dave took the pad and like dipped it and like ate it. And of course, Isabella Rossellini was horrified. And
oh, so you wouldn't tell the guest about
no,
it?
no,
Oh
no.
man.
Yeah. And and then there was one that was like so Ellen DeGeneres was on, and she was this is her first appearance after being outed, and her show got canceled, and it was like a
Oh,
big
right.
deal.
Yeah.
And she came on, and she's like, "There's been so much." In the pre-interview, she said, "There's been so much press about me. I want to, instead of plugging something of mine, I want to plug other people's projects that I like as a bit." But she didn't have an ending to it. So she was like, I could say I've been listening to Lenny Kravitz CD and we'd hold David hold that up.
Oh, okay, okay.
Or I've been I really like the movie Three Kings. Let's roll a clip, she'd throw that. And then and I remember suggesting, what about if you say you've been watching a lot of Love Boat reruns, but your VCR broke, you couldn't bring in any recorded, so Captain Stubing, and then we would raise the scrim, and Gavin MacLeod would be there in full Captain
Oh,
regalia and do a salute. Scrim comes down, that's it. And she loved the idea, so all of a sudden the whole production staff mobilizes. They get Gavin MacLeod on the phone. He's
oh,
vacationing in Martha's Vineyard, and he says, "Sure, I'll fly down for it." So they charter a flight for him, and like 2, 3 hours after having this idea, I'm in an elevator with Captain Stubing dressed as Captain Stubing from the Love Boat, and it was just surreal. So those were the fun parts when you'd get to have some goofy idea, and then all of a sudden, work with the whole staff of the best people in the business to make these things happen.
wow. All and on all of that for just a great punchline. Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, you tried, and now more than ever, you see that these guest segments there's a game that they're playing, or
yeah.
you're looking for the shareable moment, and in our case, it was like, yeah, what can you put in a promo? What's going to be a fun, or what's just going to be a fun, memorable uh, thing that we can do with this guest that hasn't been, because usually when a guest was promoting like a movie, they're on every single talk show, and
Right.
what's going to be the difference on the Letterman show?
Was something you had to think about when you say promo just like a bizarre visual that would go in a commercial?
It could be, or it could just be like a question, or like I remember when Nicole Kidman was on the first time after her divorce with Tom Cruise. It was like we knew that was going to be a big moment, and we suggested some lines for her, and one of which was, "Well, I can finally wear heels again." And she loved the line and said it, and that became like this big shared talk show moment that was on all the news things the
Oh yeah.
next day and all that stuff. So, work goes into making those moments happen.
Yeah, you look fantastic.
Thank you.
And
I don't know how to take everything.
Well, I know it's odd. It's just an odd thing.
Well, I can wear heels now.
Your primary role was working with guests and just finding the best ways to, bring out, their
Yeah, it was essentially like a producer of those
yeah.
segments. And so yeah, I was a researcher and then head researcher and then for a while a segment producer, which is like all within that segment. So, and the parts that I liked were one, tracking down old embarrassing footage, which was a pretty good training ground for what I was already doing before that and would end up doing as a career. And then getting to write comedy bits for people like Steve Martin and things like that. So, or suggest bits for guests like that I really admired.
Typically, what sort of guests were the easiest to work with? And then on the flip side, which were, like pulling teeth?
The ones well, I didn't like working with, like, if it was a young actor or young actress
Oh,
who
sure.
they have no life experience, they're boring. That was tough. Sometimes there'd be like, I remember David Boreanaz was on when he was on Buffy or something, and
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, and he was maybe it was even Angel, I don't remember, but he went on and you kind of like try to make them you want the guests to look good, you don't want them to fail, but for some reason he decided he wanted to impress Dave, I guess, by doing a Christopher Walken impression out
Oh,
of nowhere. And this is not something we if he had suggested that in the pre-interview, we would have said, "No, let's not do that." But he did it, and Dave kind of was like, Paul, you got any questions?" Like it was just, it was a sinking ship, and he came out from backstage and was kind of rubbing his temples. You could tell as a young actor, that was a disaster. But yeah, sometimes those people try too hard, or they're just uninteresting people. But I loved having on the regulars, like Richard Simmons, was
oh,
great. Charles Grodin,
oh,
Ricky Gervais. I remember with Ricky Gervais, my friends from England were telling me about this show called The Office when it was first airing there, and not in the States yet.
yeah.
And they sent me bootleg VHSs from their families overseas, and I brought them into the office, and we'd play them, and they ended up in Dave's desk, and he got obsessed with the show. So
Oh,
his
wow.
Ricky Gervais's first American TV appearance was on our show because Dave like fell in love with the show, and so it was yeah, I liked having him on because I got to just hang out backstage, and who else? Oh yeah, Isabella Rossellini, Julia Roberts was always great because she was flirty. Basically, if I didn't have to read some big political book or or I just remember being like finding out John McCain was booked like the Friday before Christmas, and then having to spend all of Christmas break reading his
Ah,
book to prep and come up
right.
with good questions for his Boxing Day appearance on the show, and it was stuff like that where I was just like your life kind of gets derailed because of last minute bookings and things like that. So yeah, I anytime where it was just easy, where it was like a guest you just knew was a shoe-in. Samuel L. Jackson was great.
Hmm.
Um,
Don Rickles?
Norm Macdonald, yeah, Don Rickles was great. I had him sign a hockey puck for
Ah,
me. Yeah, he was great, and the best part was he would just, tell jokes that didn't even make sense on, like if you transcribed them, it wouldn't make any sense.
oh, yeah.
Like, sure, Dave, want a cookie? Be like, well, what does that mean? It doesn't make any sense. But in his voice, anything is funny. So yeah, and stuff like that. Or yeah, Tom Brokaw was always great. You'd have to be up on the news and ask
Yeah.
him thoughts, but you knew it was going to be a good, informed segment.
Oh man, the Rickles stuff that always amazed me because like even in like a year or two before he passed away, he would be on the Late Show, and he was still just rip roaring funny, even though obviously the effects of aging were catching up to
Yeah.
him. You know?
Yeah, yeah. No, he was just so so lightning quick and had the perfect rapport. Charles Grodin had that too, where it was kind of like this combative thing, which was a
Yeah,
real fun dynamic with Dave and Richard Simmons too. They had a back and forth that was sort of contentious but funny and so yeah, you knew that was going to be a fun segment because they knew how to play it. They knew how
yeah,
to like uh and more importantly for me, I had to do nothing. Like when Richard Simmons was on. You just knew, all right, he's going to come out in a ridiculous outfit. I'd always plant a fire extinguisher by Dave's desk because Richard would inevitably try to get too close, and Dave could fend him off with the fire extinguisher. And it was just like, okay, I'm getting dinner early tonight.
oh man, that's great. Well, you said the thing about outfits. Another person I seem to recall coming out in crazy outfits on that show was Bruce Willis.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was the deal with his
Well,
outfits?
I think Bruce knew. I mean, he kind of knew the assignment,
Yeah,
which
okay.
was, and like the good guests too, like people like Steve Martin would spend weeks prepping their segment, and Bruce would come in like 2 days before his appearance to work with the writers, work with us about how to craft that segment. And yeah, he's one of the guys. I did some like pre-tape bits with him. Remember, he was in this movie, pretty forgettable war movie, and we had this idea where it was gonna be one of those like ads where it's people who are just coming out of the screening,
Okay.
and it would be like, usually it's like best thing I've ever seen,
Oh yeah.
unbelievable action. They're in front of the movie poster, and the idea was, we just shot it in the Ed Sullivan Theater in the lobby, and people were coming out, and then saying glowing things, and then I came out and said I dragged a little bit in the middle, and I wasn't too the action was not my thing, and then Bruce came and like muzzled me and dragged me out.
To tell you the truth, I thought it dragged a little in the middle, and the ending you could see coming along.
And I remember like I stopped talking when he muzzled me because I was like, I don't want to get my saliva on Bruce Willis's hand. I mean, I grew up loving moonlighting, and I
Oh
just
yeah.
and so I was like, I'm not gonna like lick Bruce Willis's hand. Like I would just like this, you know. And then he goes, let's try one more, but like really struggle and get and get your mouth. And I was like, good note. Okay, I'll do it for you, Bruce. And so yeah, I got to be in that bit with Bruce. But he was like self-deprecating. He would always come out with a concept.
Wow, that has to be a pinch me moment where you're actually thinking, I don't want to accidentally lick Bruce Willis's hand.
Yeah, I know. I was such a fan of his, and yeah, I mean it was. There's so many moments like that, but you're working too hard to actually like stop and enjoy them until like 20
Oh,
years later you're like, "Oh yeah, I guess that's not a normal job." But at the time you're just like, "Okay, are we done shooting the bit? Good, because I have to research uh, you know, this Jack Handy segment or this Jack Hanna segment tomorrow." So, I was always on to the next thing.
that's just the nature of that late night industry. I mean, that sounds exactly what anybody who's ever worked at Saturday Night Live says, is that like they just
Yeah.
really enjoyed it while they were there because it was such a rapid fire nonstop pace.
It's like, yeah, just like that. It's a gauntlet, and it's an assembly line that never ends, And we got like, I think 8 weeks off a year, which seems like a lot, but those weeks you were constantly working on the next, trying to get ahead for the next week. And even when I remember being in the Bahamas on vacation and going by a newsstand and seeing like something about, I forget who it was, some actress. And I was like, oh, I better pick this up because she might have a story that we could mine for her appearance, like Jessica Alba or something.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I guess I got to pick up this Us Weekly in the Bahamas and read it on the beach because she's on next week. So you never had an off switch.
Did you
And
ever have a moment where you had the conscious thought, I resent that I'm learning this about somebody?
well, there was one time, the most memorable time. I keep going back to Richard Simmons, but
Oh,
I was reading his autobiography, and it had this very soft focus photo of him with a fork in his mouth, kind of looking coy.
okay.
And I'm reading this on the subway the whole week of his appearance on the way to work, and with a highlighter. And I must have looked ridiculous to other people on the train because I'm just like studying, poring over the details like it's the Magna Carta, but it's Richard Simmons' autobiography. So I learned everything about him for this segment on the show. We didn't get to any of it, but
Oh,
he came on, it was for Thanksgiving, and he dressed in a very sparkly turkey outfit, big feathers and everything. I had the fire extinguisher planted by Dave's desk, and I think Dave had gotten back from his heart surgery, and somebody gave him a kiss, I think. And he goes, "Well, I want to give you a kiss too." And Dave's like, "No, that's
oh,
okay, Richard, whatever."
yeah.
And he wanted Richard to take off the costume in between his first and during the commercial so that the next segment he could just have a
Right.
conversation with him. Richard refused to take off the turkey outfit. Dave was already mad about that. And then Richard wouldn't let the kiss thing go. So Dave was mad about that. At one point, Richard was chasing Dave away from his desk all around where the monologue was, home base, we called it.
Okay.
And Dave was fending him off with the fire extinguisher, but Richard grabbed him around the neck and planted a big kiss on him. And Dave got genuinely pissed, not like
Oh,
this is playful anymore. Started swearing at him, being like, "You effing maniac! Get out of here!" You could just tell something. You know, I don't know if he hurt him or
yeah.
whatever, but he just got genuinely pissed for a second. And Richard, being so sensitive, this is all what I learned about in his book,
Oh, yeah.
very sensitive, emotional person, came backstage, looked me in the eye, and said, "I can't breathe." And he was hyperventilating and couldn't breathe. And I looked around, I was like, "What should I do?" And the producer goes, "Call 911." So I called 911 and they were asking me all this for first and only time I've called 911. They're like, "What's the emergency?" I'm like, "There's a man here who can't breathe." And he's like, how old is he? I was like, 43. I knew exactly because I had read the book. They're like, "Does he have any health conditions?" I'm like, "Well, he was overweight. Now he's not. He's been an asthma sufferer since he was 12." Me and maybe Richard's mom were the only ones who knew this much about Richard Simmons. I had been over his his biography with a highlighter. So they continue asking me questions. I'm like, if you have any more questions, it's Richard Simmons. Like I should probably be anonymous about it, but
Right.
the fitness guru, it's Richard Simmons. He's backstage. Get here as quick as you can.
Oh my God.
So that's where I was like, yeah, I might know too much, but it was the exact right amount to call 911 and let them know what was going on. And
Might might have
as an
saved his life.
yeah, I mean, we were able to calm him down. We got him out of the turkey outfit, and he was able to breathe in a paper bag. So the ambulance came, it took way too long for an ambulance to come. If he had actually been
Oh,
unable to breathe for too long, I think
right.
that would have been it. But yeah, it was mostly he needed to calm down, and he was able to. So Richard was fine.
Was he able to come back to the show after that, or did
He
Dave
was
had enough?
banned. He was banned for I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8 years, and then he finally came back. I was gone from the show at that point, but yeah,
Okay.
he did come back, and all was forgiven.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a
I
memorable
imagine
one.
maybe that wasn't the first time someone had to call 911 on his behalf.
Maybe not, maybe not, but I would love a recording of that 911 call just
Oh,
for my own archives.
yeah, that would be great. Okay. Since, this is primarily a music podcast, I wonder if there are any memories of particularly musicians.
We had, I think was it Queens of the Stone Age played on the marquee,
Oh, okay.
and we had Paul McCartney play there,
Oh, yeah,
and it
yeah.
was cool having Paul back on the Ed Sullivan Theater
Oh,
because that's where the
absolutely.
Beatles first played in America. So that was a memorable one. I remember going to see the rehearsal when Beck was on. That was a cool one for
Oh,
me.
nice.
Um, and
Were you there? Did Springsteen ever come through when you were there?
yeah, in fact, I remember being backstage with Bruce and Patty were just kind of normally the guests are up in their dressing rooms, and then the person from the talent department brings them down right for their segment. They walk out on stage and whatever. But Bruce was just hanging out backstage with us watching the show, where like the producers all hang out. And I remember there was just some dumb bit about, I don't know, an Amish version of CSI or something. And I remember Bruce kind of just sitting there going, "That's funny." Like he's kind of just kind of laughing a little bit, looking at Patty and laughing, and you know, that. Oh, I remember Willie Nelson was on once, and he was in. I forget the name of his tour bus, the Honeysuckle Rose, maybe,
Yeah,
or
that sounds right.
yeah, something like that. And I was prepping for, I think he was going to do an interview in addition to a performance, but he didn't go backstage to a green room. He just hung out on the tour bus. And so they said, "Go, we'll go talk to him on the bus." And I went on there, and the bus door is open, and it just wafts out with thick marijuana smoke. It was very illegal at the time,
Oh, yeah.
and it was like very eye-opening for me. And and I remember him offering me. He's like, "Do you want anything?" And he like opened this drawer, and it was just full of every like, pre-rolled joints, a bong, all this stuff. And I'm at work, and I'm not a pot guy, so I said no. And now I look at it, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? I had the opportunity to. I mean, I would have been laid out for the week, but it would have been a good story to tell.
Yeah, that stuff he had wasn't entry level at all, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh man, that is awesome. Well, one person we talk a lot about on this channel is Warren Zevon, and we're very
yes,
excited. He's going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year.
yeah. About time.
Yeah, certainly. And I know that he said that Letterman was the best friend his music ever had. So you were there for his last appearance, right?
Yeah, yep. I remember. I remember just thinking I didn't know what the deal was. We just got word that there will only be one guest, and my initial thought was, oh, my job's easy. This is like
Right.
normally you're having to research three guests or two, but only one, and like it's just going to be Warren Zevon, and you don't need to research anything about him. And I was like, all right, I'm taking the day off. That
Yeah.
was but then of course it was sort of tight-lipped what his diagnosis was, and
Yeah.
that it was that, terminal. And so I think Dave and Warren just had talked about that they wanted to do this. And it was memorable because it was just like you could tell they were old friends. Dave would always, whenever Warren Zevon would always was on, he'd be like, "Remember when we'd just be done doing a show and we'd just drive somewhere?" Like after a sh and sometimes Dave would say like that and it would be fake, but I think they really did. Like they just really got along, and I'm guessing maybe back in Dave's drinking days he would do this more, but just they would just go on long drives together and not have any destination in mind. Um, and I
Yeah, I
remember,
don't know. I don't know
yeah.
what Dave's drinking days were, but they might have crossed over with Warren's drinking days.
Yes. Yeah. I'm guessing that might have been part of it. And they both sort of survived that. And then, of course, Dave, long time has been sober. But, uh, and then Warren would be on the show a lot, as sitting in with the band. And that's what he would do mostly, sit in with the band. But then he had that like devastating final album. And,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I just remember being rapt watching the show live as it was happening from my desk. We would tape at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and um, yeah, I mean it being funny and then like darkly humorous and emotional, and like it was everything Warren Zevon's music was.
I mean, that has since become a legendary episode
Hmm.
of The Late Show.
Yeah.
Were there other instances when you were on that show that maybe you recognized in the moment that this is a big moment for our show?
There were a lot. I mean, it was a pretty eventful time, and I think a lot of it had to do with Dave's personal stuff going on with Dave personally, like when he had the triple bypass surgery, or was it quintuple bypass surgery? That was big. We had like the whole we were preempted, and then we had like the whole comeback shows with the nurse. I remember, we had a lot of presidents on. I remember George W.
Oh,
Bush
okay.
coming on, and this wasn't even on camera, but in the time where you're in the commercial, producers are coming up, and one of the producers, Maria Pope, came up to talk to Dave and prep him for the next segment, and somebody was talking to George W. Bush as well. And George W. Bush took his glasses off and then cleaned them off on Maria's using Maria's sweater without her knowing it. And it was only later that we caught that on like the in-house cameras, like and noticed like, what is he doing? He just didn't ask permission and is cleaning off his
Yeah.
glasses with their camera, or with her sweater, and like
Yeah.
then we kind of made a meal out of that.
This happened last night on our show during a commercial. You didn't see it at home. Here, all right, roll it now. Watch the governor. All right, look at this. What is he doing?
I remember the famous moments when I was in high school. This might have
Yeah,
been after your time. Was when Bill O'Reilly would go on the show, and
I
they would
don't
have
rem.
like arguments
Yeah,
about the war.
yeah. I was there from 1999 to 2004.
Oh,
Um,
that's close. Yeah, somewhere around.
yeah. So I mean, he definitely had some contentious political, and he was good. I mean, Dave
Yeah.
was, he plays the sort of the dumb guy, but he read the New York Times cover to cover every day, and very well informed. So he could go toe to toe with presidents, politicians, people running for president. Um, so yeah, boy, it's all a blur, but we had some big moments when I was there. I'm trying to remember. I think Joaquin Phoenix was after my time.
Oh,
Uh,
I remember that one.
but it was the kind of thing where we kind of knew, yeah, that was 2009. I'm looking to
Okay.
see it now. But yeah, that was kind of thing where you knew it was a bit, but Dave was playing it exactly perfect. I think he said, "I'm sorry you couldn't be here tonight, Joaquin," or something like that. So,
Like Dave knew it was a
y-
bit?
yeah, I think he was onto it.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, I think he was onto it and then played it just pitch perfect.
Yeah.
Which not, I wouldn't trust Fallon to do that, but
Well, I think that's why when I think back to when I would watch, like why me and my friend who also liked Letterman, liked him so much, is that we knew how sharp he could be, and we knew he didn't suffer fools wisely.
Hmm.
Whereas, the other late night guys would just kind of smile along, and it's less entertaining. Dave, if a guest annoyed Dave, we could see it, and that was enjoyable.
Yeah, and like we all worked very hard for Dave because he
Right.
demanded it, and the show demanded it, and Dave is a perfectionist, and that all trickles down, and that competitiveness trickles down too, and so in some ways it could be a miserable like uh breakneck thing like we were talking about before, and kind of a soul crushing the amount of work you had to do. But you knew you were doing it for somebody who was the best to ever do it, I think.
Yeah.
And so you could take a nothing, he could take a nothing guest and spin gold out of it, even when, we did the best we could by adding elements or things for Dave to hold up or gimmicks, props, or clips and things to break up a segment when we knew the guest wasn't going to be that entertaining on their own.
Hmm.
But even then, it can crash and burn. And but we had every confidence that Dave could make TV gold out of it.
Yeah, that's great. Last Letterman question for you, and then we'll move on. One guest I have to ask about
Hmm.
because she just reappeared last Christmas was Darlene Love,
Yeah.
and she did the Baby Please Come Home every year on the Late Show. What was it like having her show up every year at Christmas time?
Oh, she was so friendly. And it kind of felt like because we were all there and where we wanted to be with our families, because it was like usually like the day before Christmas, or it was like usually the day before Christmas Eve, and you're like about to fly and go home, but I'm really working really hard right now. And we'd have Jay Thomas on that Christmas episode from Cheers, and he's a
Okay.
DJ, and he would always throw footballs with Dave at the Christmas tree that had a meatball from Rupert's Hello Deli on the top of it. He would try to knock off the meatball, and so that was the tradition. And then Darlene Love would come on and play Christmas Baby Please Come Home. We'd usually have a choir behind her, and then afterwards, we would have our staff Christmas party, either at Woolman Rink in Central Park at the ice skating rink or on the stage. And Darlene would be there and Jay Thomas would be there, and she would just hang out with everybody else. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't emotional when she sang that song and the choir comes in and you're like, oh, I really want to be home in Wisconsin right now. I'm flying there tomorrow and I miss my family. And, you're thinking about all those things and her powerful voice just belting out that classic song, and she was just lovely. It was such a great tradition.
As stressful as that job must have been, there also must have been moments like that where you were able to take a breath and be like, okay, this is why I do this.
Yeah, yeah, just weird moments. Like there was one time where I helped get Emo Phillips back on the show. He used to be
Oh
on the
yeah.
used to be on late night regularly, but
Okay.
that was the 80s when and Dave I think thought of him as kind of a gimmicky comedian. But there was this Esquire piece that was posted that was like the top um best 100 jokes ever written, and Emo Phillips had like five of them on there.
Oh,
So we kind of used that as leverage to Dave to be like, let's have him back. And so we got him there, and I remember Tiki Barber was there too from the New York Giants. And I was
okay.
just in an elevator with Emo Phillips and Tiki Barber going up to the dressing rooms, and I remember saying, "Oh, Emo, this is Tiki, Tiki, this is Emo," and not thinking it was funny at all until I got down in the elevator. I'm like, this is a weird job.
Yeah.
It's a real weird job. Or just, I remember being in the green room with Kirstie Alley, I think Marilyn Manson,
Oh
and
God.
a, uh, two Chinese contortionists who were actually doing the thing where they're putting their legs behind their head onto their shoulders, like
Okay.
warming up for their appearance. And it was just like, okay, that's just in the green room, but we're all just watching the monitor as the show goes on and waiting for the appearance. And just Bill Clinton was on once, and he was in the green room too. And I remember I was that kind of there with my clipboard trying not to bother him. And he goes, "Hey, you want to get a picture?" Like he asked me for a picture. Like I mean, it's the ultimate politician thing. Like
Yeah. Oh
I'm sure
man.
you want a picture, right? So I have a picture with a very young me and Bill Clinton in the green room there, and uh, so
Oh
yeah,
man.
just weird stuff like that happened all the time.
Oh, that is terrific. So did you see him do that? I saw him close up in person once, and he did that. All right, kind of thing. And I saw him do that, put that spell on people where they're
Absolutely.
makes you feel like you're the only one in the world.
Exactly. Looked you right in the eye. Other like Tom Cruise would do that too.
Right, yep, okay.
Did the double handshake and look you right in the eye and um
Oh man.
yeah, there were people like that that just had undeniable charisma.
So was it that it was a crushing workload and a relentless pace, and then all the sprinkled in with maybe frustrating or bizarre moments that you felt that you had enough, or what made you decide to leave the show?
Well, I kind of wanted to do my own thing again. I was
Oh,
like, I think from a creative standpoint, I'd done what I could do on the show and wanted to branch out and spread my wings a little bit. And
yeah.
with Joe, who I founded the Found Footage Festival with, childhood friend and college roommate, we um, decided to we both quit our jobs to make a documentary we were working on that we thought was going to be short, but developed into a feature called Dirty Country about a guy who sings filthy country music.
Love it.
And had we found his tapes at truck stops, were fascinated by this guy and went to go meet him. And he said, "Guys, I work third shift at an auto parts factory and dream up these horny ideas on my breaks, and then release them at truck stops. But I don't think my life's that interesting." And we're like, "Dude, that's fascinating." So we followed him around for about 4 years, and all these weird things happen, including uncovering this whole world of underground dirty music that's existed. As long as there's been America as a country. There was like dirty sea shanties and nursery rhymes and party records. You have to get under the table at record stores like Blowfly, and we interviewed all these living legends of raunchy music. And it was sort of this dirty little secret of the American recording industry that we explored in the documentary, along with this one guy's story. So we quit to go work on that, and while doing that, we needed some money to help fund the documentary. They weren't giving grants out for documentaries about dirty music, so we just decided to take this little hobby thing we did with friends, which was show off our VHS collection, the funniest parts, and make jokes along with the videos. And we would do that in our college dorm room and after that in apartments and stuff. And we just decided to take that out of a living room and put it in the back of a theater in New York, the back of a bar that had this little 50-seat theater. And it became a big hit. And so we ended up raising enough money to finish the documentary. And after the documentary was released, we continued touring, and that became we sort of backed into that as our job.
Oh, wow. So when you originally were putting together the idea for the Found Footage Festival, were you thinking this will be just a one-off tour idea just to raise funds and then
Yeah. Yeah, it
oh,
was like, I mean, I came from a comedy background and doing live improv and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, what's a way to marry this thing we do for friends in our living room that really makes us laugh?
right,
What if we took that outside of that and see if anybody else would be interested? And this is 2004, so YouTube wasn't even out yet. People
right.
didn't really know what this type of material was. But I think it was just kind of the perfect moment where people were ready to look back at the VHS era and laugh a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we just found there was something magical about taking these types of videos that we collect, which are not movies, but training videos and exercise tapes, things that were meant to be seen in a break room or a living room privately, and then putting them into a big theater and projecting them on a big screen and giving people sort of permission to laugh at something. Yeah, something magical happens in that context, and now more than ever, people are grateful to have two reliable curators who can sort of take them through this weird world of found VHS.
Yeah, one's right here.
Thanks.
I saw you guys the first time at the Times Cinema here in Milwaukee. I think in 2005. I was still in high school.
Okay, that would have been, yeah, early, like our first year, 2 years of touring.
Yep, and I remember that was the funniest live show I had ever seen, by a country mile. So I'm one of the many who am so happy that it wasn't a limited run thing. Did you have a moment in that first tour where it registered to you that you might have something here and you had something you could build on to go for years and years?
One moment I remember we were doing a West Coast tour. We did 2 weeks, starting in Vancouver and going down to San Diego. And I remember being in Sacramento and playing the clip. We had a 1983 VHS tape called Carnival in Rio,
Oh,
which was Arnold Schwarzenegger basically playing grab ass all over Rio during Carnival, and cameras were rolling. And it was supposed to be like what happens after dark in Rio, kind of an after dark kind of thing before that existed. I think it was maybe even for the Playboy channel or something, but they put it on VHS.
Oh, he's very grabby.
Extremely grabby.
Yep.
I can absolutely understand why Brazil is totally devoted to my favorite body part, the ass.
Yep. Two-term governor.
The longer
Yep.
I was in
It's pretty incriminating. And he was governor of California there. And somebody afterwards told us at the merch table, they're like, I work at the governor's office. He's trying to bury every copy of this, but she goes, keep doing what you're doing. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, this is actually getting out there. And it's kind of a truth to power thing for some of the clips. And I thought, okay, maybe we're onto something more than just this lark of something that our limited group of weirdo friends enjoyed. Maybe there's more power to this than we initially thought.
absolutely. And over time, you and Joe both became part of the show with your own comedy bits that you would add to it. I remember a couple of years, I don't know which volume, but the one where you guys go on the public access show and you're wearing that weird beauty mask
Yeah, the
thing.
Rejuvenate.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's right. And Joe's dressed in a leopard print. I was just in tears laughing so hard. That was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen. So when you think back on all the comedy bits that you got to be a part of, what are the ones that, you're most proud of?
I like when we go track down the people, and we have to do
Yes.
some detective work, like, because, we get each little video we find is a little human interest story that we want to know more about. We want to meet the
Oh,
people
yeah.
behind it. There's some regrets of people we didn't meet, but then we found out they passed away or whatever. But there was a lady, this is in our most recent show we're on the road with now. There's a lady named Diane Thomas who, I guess she used to be on the Today Show doing like fun crafting and food segments. And then she had a long run in the 90s of releasing VHS tapes about how to make fun party decorations. And everything she does involves dry ice. And her crafting ideas, I'll say they're outside the box, maybe too far outside. You can judge, but they're weird things like painting a dead fish, including its eyeball, and then putting a towel on it to make a print to have on your towel. So it kind of ruins the towel and dishonors the dead fish. Um, and so it's just bizarre ideas, things like
Yeah.
that defy explanation. And I'd been playing some of her clips on our YouTube show VCR Party. I knew that people loved these, and so I put together a montage of some of her weirdest crafting ideas in our new show. And so I'm like, we got to go meet her. So I emailed her, didn't hear back for long, and then finally I called her on the phone. And once I talked to her, she knew, I think, oh, we're not going to be making fun of you. We love your, enthusiasm, your creativity. She invited us to come visit her in Salt Lake City. And so we didn't even have shows out on the West Coast. We just booked flights to Salt Lake,
Oh, wow.
uh, brought cameras. We went to go meet her, and we got to show her. We presented her with some of our crafting ideas, and then she gave us some crafting ideas for merch to sell at our shows. One of which was she didn't have a fish, but we had a VHS tape. So we all painted a VHS tape and put it on a t-shirt, and then it made this cool VHS print on the shirt. And
Oh,
now we sell those shirts as part of the Diane Thomas collection at our merch table. So I think that's just one of the more recent examples where uh, it it kind of makes you remember why you do what you do because it was fun,
yeah.
good, not mean-spirited. She had the time of her life. We're friends now. We text, and it's just been this real positive experience.
Yeah, and that translates because I remember I saw one of your shows where you revealed that you had caught up with Harvey Sid Fisher, the
Yeah,
astrology, and
astrology songs.
as someone who had seen the previous tour, like I was really happy to hear that he was still alive and doing that music as Goofy.
Yeah, yeah. We still occasionally hit a bucket of balls with him at a driving range when we're in
Oh,
Los
no kidding.
Angeles, and he yells at me. He doesn't think I take his advice very well on my golf swing, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's really that's been the most gratifying thing. I think, one of the first videos that started us collecting was when I was in high school. This was 1991. I was working at a McDonald's in Wisconsin, and uh, my friend was training to become a manager and had to watch over 30 training videos. And one was for McDonald's janitors. It was called Inside Custodial Duties, and we call it McC because it was this dopey trainee, and it's his first day on the job as the McDonald's janitor, and this overly perky crew trainer says that if he cleans extra hard, he could hope to see McC. But they never really define what McC is, if it's a spirit or a state
Right.
of being, or if he's the McC. It's confusing.
Yeah.
But there's no credits in training videos, so we had no leads. I tried to even talk. I talked one time to the head of training at McDonald's. They didn't know who any of these actors were, who produced it. But somebody who watches our YouTube show said, "Hey, I was watching the trailer for a David Schwimmer movie. I think it's called Since You've Been Gone." I'd never heard of it,
Mm.
but he said, "I think I spotted the janitor from the McDonald's training video." And sure enough, it was. It was. He shot it in Chicago. McDonald's is based in Illinois, and we're like, okay, so maybe this is him. We watched the credits, and we're like, okay, that his name's Richard Radutsky. We did some research. We found out he owns a candy company, a family candy company that's been around for over 100 years in Brooklyn, New York, about, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes from our office there.
Oh,
And
wow.
so for 20 years, he's been right under our noses this whole time. This guy we've been seeking
Oh, okay.
since
Yeah.
the 90s, since high school. We got obsessed with this tape. So the height of the pandemic in 2020, we risked our lives to go meet him. We all had masks on, but we met him outside the candy factory. We hugged him. We became pals with him, and he was as stunned as we were that like he had forgotten about even doing this. And I think we asked him questions. We're like, so has anybody else recognized you from the training video? He goes, what the fuck do you think? Like he was he was so funny about it. But he was like David Schwimmer's acting teacher. He was like
Oh, okay.
on this path to be a successful actor. Lived in Los Angeles, but then I think the patriarch in this family-run candy company passed away, and he had to decide, what do I do? Do I continue the family business or let it die? And he decided to move back to Brooklyn and continue the Dreva Candy Company. So I mean, hearing interesting stories and getting to meet these people who to us are VHS heroes is the reason we're still doing it.
Oh, yeah. Man, that's great. Especially
And the
because,
show's funny too, hopefully.
yeah, it is.
It's heartwarming but funny too.
I know you get asked about copyright and trademark. Just
Mhm.
in a short version, how do you deal with the fact that a lot of this material, at least at one point, was owned by somebody else?
There is a great law in the United States, which it's not in England, it's not anywhere else, but in the United States, it's fair use. And we have a copyright attorney, and basically the rule is if you are doing something transformative with the footage, recontextualizing it, repurposing it, talking over it, commenting and criticizing it, it is a fair use of that footage. And so, we're not selling duped copies of this footage. We're
Right.
creatively editing short excerpts from much longer videos, chopping it up, talking it over them, doing elaborate bits based on the material. And then we sell our DVDs, of our whole show, of which those videos are maybe, 0.1%, of a material from one video is in there. So occasionally we'll get somebody who's like a little miffed about it, but yeah, we're protected under fair use for the way we present it. Of course, that always needs to stand up in a lot, in a court. So if somebody could claim that we're not doing it in fair use, but we know what the parameters are and we try to keep it within that.
That is great. Well, the reason I ask is because I've always wanted to ask you about how you feel in regards to your intellectual property with the Found Footage Festival, because for as long as I've seen video content online, I have seen your clips and your montages and your work basically reposted on sites that are not affiliated with you, and on Reels and TikTok and
Yeah, yeah.
all over it, to the point that it makes me wonder. I bet you're one of the most bootlegged comedians of all time. So
That's
there's got to be
true.
mixed
Yeah.
feelings about that. Have you ever, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there are times I let it get to me a little bit, and I'm like, oh, this has 100 million views, and they cropped out our watermark
Right.
where we tried to, and like you say, we don't own the footage, but the way we own our creative edit of it and our presentation of it. And so when people take it out of that context and are just reposting something I worked really hard to edit, I'm like, man, yeah, I don't own that footage, but I remember finding that at a thrift store in Ohio. The tape was moldy, so I cleaned the mold off,
Hmm.
digitized it by, using two different VCRs to make sure it played well, found what was funny about it, edited it in a way to make it funny, and then presented it in a live show, and then posted a small snippet from that on our Instagram or YouTube. And then to just see somebody post it and just take credit for it, it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's bothersome. Because I just think that the context is so important to how these are presented. And when you divorce them from that, it's kind of ugly and it can get mean-spirited. And I don't, it's a fine line. And so it is tough for me to see that slip out of our hands. So I like it when people, I think it's sort of petty for us to go police all that, but if somebody spots one of our clips online, just putting a comment or DMing them and saying, "Hey, can you give found footage credit for that?" or something.
Yeah.
But again, it's we don't own the footage, so there isn't much of a legal standing. It's more just like a politeness thing to say, "Hey, these guys some should get some credit for digging this up and doing something with it."
Yeah. I mean, the least the sites could do would be to link to your page, but still. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we're
don't.
not exactly the big dogs. I mean, there's been
Right.
people who take our material and are far more successful with it than we are. So it's a
Yeah.
little frustrating sometimes when we're struggling to make the rent and somebody just kind of is like, let me just crop out the part where it says found footage and rip it and post and here we go.
Yeah, and it's that crop that makes it malicious. Whereas
Yeah,
maybe someone was just like, I thought it was funny, I wanted to share, but cropping it out to screw you
it's
guys
done
over.
intentionally and yeah
Yeah,
and yeah. So it's just stealing at that point. I like to think what we do has a little bit more art to it.
absolutely. Well, I mean, is that the biggest trapping of basically pursuing comedy via editing? I mean, is editing and montage and compilation like the most underappreciated form of comedy, do you think?
Well, yeah, I think like we work really hard on our editing of these videos. There's ways you can be really manipulative and do like close-ups and give somebody glowing red eyes, and we don't do that style of editing because our
Oh
general
yeah.
philosophy is that these clips are funny enough on their own that they don't need too much manipulation to make them funny.
Yeah.
Um, but there's an art to doing that as well, and we hone our show is never um, it's different every time because we're continually making edits depending on audience reactions. This part gets laughed over. Let's leave a little bit. Let's leave a half second or put 2 frames on this, and this is a better out. Let's put this at so that there really is a lot of work that goes into making the edits play well in a live context.
Mhm.
And um, so yeah, that's one half of the battle, but then the other half is how do you present it? And that's where Joe and I come in as the sort of straight men to this weird world of you know, the videos that time forgot. So we come out and we of course have jokes and we have our particular things we like about the footage or notice about the footage. We try to put them in the proper context, like, you know, Satan was everywhere in the 80s and they made videos warning you against him. You know, like people need to know, okay, yeah, satanic panic was a thing. Here's all the, you know, so or finding, you know, trends or something that you might not notice otherwise. I'm trying to think of an example. We have a whole montage of videos where they start off by they say, "Oh, hello." You know, like it's always they're doing something else and then they're taken by surprise at the beginning of the video. It's like, "Oh, you caught me doing this." No, we didn't, you know,
Yeah.
but that was a trope, you know. So, yeah, those are things that we find just from being in the trenches and watching things over and over. So, yeah, I think half of it is half of the art to what we do. And look, we put our 10,000 hours into it, but it's something really stupid. And we're really acknowledging that we've really painted ourselves into a corner with this as our career. But yes, since you asked, the editing is something we work really hard at, and then the presentation. We try not to have it be too, you know, we try to have it be casual and off the cuff, but also like find where the jokes are, find what hits the best. Don't step over the videos at certain times, but this part might need a little help, so let's add a little something here and that's sort of the art that just comes from, you know, like a stand-up doing reps on the road.
You know, I could ask you questions about that for a solid hour, just about
Oh,
the art
yeah.
of editing, because I can't think of a live show, a comedy show at least, that brings that element of comedy into it. I think that's what makes you guys so unique and so fucking funny is that it's live and it's cut really well at the same time.
Yeah, well, thanks. I think like, you know, we don't want people to have to suffer through these videos in their entirety. So we
Right.
try to edit them in the most entertaining uh presentation as possible. And look,
Yeah.
a lot of people, a lot of sickos come up after the show and be like, "I want to see the full cash register instructional video. It's so funny." And we're like, "No, you don't. You
Yeah.
think you want to see the whole one?" But if you were there during the 2 hours we watched that silently without laughing, you know, that's the work. The show's the fun part, but yeah, the actual watching and or watching a 2 hour cash register instructional tape and not finding anything funny. That's just
Oh,
time you'll never get back. You know, we're turning 50 next year, and that's just the time you spent on something that
yeah.
amounted to nothing, but you do
Wow.
it because when you do find something, then it makes you appreciate it all the more.
Well, and I can tell you just as someone who's seen the show, you know, a dozen times, I appreciate it too. It is never not hysterical.
Ah,
Some of
thanks.
the most fun times I've had out seeing comedy have absolutely been every time I've seen your guys' show. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys next month. Before we go, uh, can you talk about the tour you got planned for this year? Is this going to be volume 11 or what's the theme of
Yeah,
this?
this is volume 11. It's got stuff every time we think we get done with a big tour, we think, well, that's it. We found all the ridiculous tapes. Let's call it a day. But no, we just keep finding more weirder stuff. So we have I think the best exercise video compilation we've ever put together is in this show.
Wow.
It's extremely weird and extremely nude. Uh, there's a new genre we discovered, Bigfoot tapes, Bigfoot seminar tapes. We found
Oh,
a couple of those. We have a whole new batch of karaoke VHS tapes with completely incongruous videos for songs that have nothing to do with the lyrics, you know, it's just B-roll they found. Um, and of course, there's our compilation of Diane Thomas and our meeting with her, which is historic. So, yeah, I think this is the best show we've ever put together. It keeps getting better, and yeah, we're hitting like 100 cities or something before the tour's done. So,
oh, wow. Well, that is awesome. I hope that's going to be a great time. Where can people find you on social media? Because I want people to find you on social media because I really can't think of anybody who actually uses a social media platform better than yourself. There's so much negativity out there that I think about getting rid of social media all the time, but then I'll
yeah.
see something that you've posted and it'll crack me up.
Found Footage Festival or Found Footage Fest most places. We just passed 130,000 subscribers on YouTube. And
Nice.
so if you don't want to wait till we come to your city, each week on Tuesday night, we do a live show with special guests like Kyle Mooney and John Glazer and Emmy Blotnick, where we just watch the newest finds, the stuff that we found that week on the
Oh, cool.
road. We queue it up and um, we did a whole bowling episode where we watched all bowling instructional tapes, and that's been a lot. I think we're like almost 8 years into that show now, so that's a fun way you can join us as well. That's not social media, but it's a little bit more long form, hang out with us, watch tapes kind of format.
Absolutely. I will post links to all that in the description below. And then my last question for you is in relation to the shirt I'm wearing because I follow you on social media
Yes,
and I see you post your mom wearing metal band shirts. And some years
yes,
ago, you had a metal mom balloon and parade float. Can you give us just the story behind what
yeah.
happened with all that?
So I mean I like metal, but I'm a huge metal fan or anything. So it's a bit stolen valor on my part. But um, I remember being terrified in high school when a senior came in wearing the Metallica "Metal Up Your Ass" t-shirt with the knife sticking out of the toilet. I was like, "Your mom lets you wear that? How can you wear that to school? It's terrifying." And I just was so scared of that shirt and that person. And then I saw that shirt in a thrift store, like, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago. And I was like, it'd be funny to have my sweet Midwestern mom wear this, like, but just like baking a pie
Right.
or wearing a metal up your ass shirt. And she's, of course, a good sport. I put her up to a lot of stuff over the years. So she put it on. I took a photo and said, there's my metal mom again.
Hmm.
And then every time I'd be at a thrift store, I'd find like a Sepultura shirt or yeah, the black metal shirts were the best. Or if it was, anything satanic or that was just the best. So my mo
Cannibal Corpse.
Cannibal Corpse is a great one. Crocus, I found her a Crocus
Just
shirt.
How do you call yourself rock and roll if you ain't got nobody from Crocus?
I, uh, I would put her in those shirts and have her doing mom things,
yeah.
shopping at a grocery store, knitting, playing Scrabble, but wearing the most demonic shirt I could find. And yeah, over the years I just had a bunch of photos. And then I have a hometown parade that celebrates Norwegian Independence Day in my little Norwegian hometown in
Oh,
Stoughton, Wisconsin. And
okay.
big parade, but it's all I was watching a broadcast on public access of the most recent parade, and it was a shadow of its former self when I grew up. It was just like these kind of sad floats. And so I looked into making a float and I just pitched my metal mom as the theme, and they said, sure. And so once I got the green light, I was like, okay, we need to make a giant 35-foot Macy's balloon of my mom. We made a throne made of knitting needles and a black Viking ship that spewed smoke out and Viking shields that had knitting needles on, and even a local metal band wrote a song called "All Hail the Metal Mom" that played on the
Oh,
speakers as we went down, and I knew we were successful because kids were lined up and they couldn't believe they were like, "Hi, Metal Mom," and I think the mark of true success was a super religious guy from Milwaukee drove in just to protest the float because he thought it
oh
was
man,
satanic.
you
So
did it.
I knew that chalked that one up as a success. We had her in the year after, and he followed the float the whole way, shouting things like "repent." So it's like,
Okay.
yes, we're doing some good in this world.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's like if you wrote that idea, someone would be like, I don't know, that's a little cliche. But no, that
yeah,
that
yeah.
actually happened. Man,
Oh
I
yeah,
love
I
that.
had I had to answer to the town. They're like, "Is it true it's satanic?" I'm like, "No, the guy's just a kook.
Yeah.
Ignore him." But yeah, that's how I knew I'd crossed over. When it started getting the attention of people from outside my little hometown. So um, yeah, I just started a Patreon called the Public Nonsense Project to help
Yes.
fund goofy events like that. So um. I recently defaced a public wall on a warehouse in my neighborhood with giant circles of Love Boat guest stars. Um, and One of them was Paul Williams, who wrote the Muppet movie soundtrack, and sent him a picture of it, and he's like, "This made my day." And so it's promoting stuff like that that has no commercial value at all, but it's something that just makes people drove by, and I heard some guy with his window down go, "Why would they do that?"
Yeah.
And that's exactly the kind of reaction I'm trying to do. And you can support these goofy money-losing projects on Patreon if you're into that and be part of it and vote on the next project and things like that. So that, to me, those are the things that make life worth living. Little goofy public spectacles like that.
I am into that, so I will be signing up for that tonight.
Thanks, man.
I have seen some of the stuff you posted. It is hysterical. And I want to really say thank you for coming on and telling these great stories today, because I didn't mention earlier, but this is the 100th episode for this podcast.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
And I wanted to have someone on that has been basically influential to me, and someone that I've been, following the career of for a long time. And like I said, I saw the first found footage, tour back in 2005 or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
some of the
OG.
hardest laughs I've had out at a show have been at your festival. And I'm so glad you're still doing it all these years later.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And also you should go see more shows, because there's probably funnier shows than ours. So you just haven't been to them. So,
I doubt it.
but
Well, so with that, I'll just say thanks again for coming on. And if ever in the future, I would love to talk to both you and Joe about the various documentaries you've been a part of, because that's something we didn't even have time for tonight.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
another
no.
amazing part of your career.
Yeah, we are documentary filmmakers and appreciators. So we've been championing some of our favorite docs and trying to give them an official release in some form or another. So yeah, happy to come back on and chat about that sometime.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll say goodnight, and I guess I'll see you at the Oriental on November 22nd.
Yeah, good talking to you too.
Hey, thanks for listening. There's no shortage of great content out there, so you choosing to spend some time listening to this show means quite a lot. If you're so inclined, please give this podcast a 5-star rating and a positive review wherever you get your podcasts. And share our links wherever you can. Or mention this show to anyone you know looking for a podcast recommendation. All of this helps us out a great deal, and I appreciate it. You can connect with us on social media too. We are at Play That Podcast on Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, and even TikTok. Or we are at Play That Rock and Roll on YouTube and Instagram. Please post a comment and say hello. Finally, Play That Rock and Roll is a proud member of the Pantheon podcast community. So if you're looking for more music podcasts beyond this one, trust me, start with Pantheon. You won't be disappointed. Otherwise, I appreciate any and all efforts you take to support us here at Play That Rock and Roll. Be sure to join us next time for more great music and stories from the world of classic rock.